There is a silent, multi-billion-dollar transaction happening every single day in supermarkets, convenience stores, and restaurants across the globe, and it completely defies every logical rule of human economics. Millions of intelligent, hardworking people are willingly handing over their money to purchase something that they already possess in absolute abundance. If a door-to-door salesman knocked on your house and tried to sell you a plastic bag filled with the exact same oxygen that you're currently breathing, you would immediately laugh and slam the door at his face. You would never pay for a free, natural resource that constantly surrounds you. Yet, when it comes to the beverage industry, you and billions of other consumers routinely pay a staggering 2,000% markup for a liquid that literally falls from the clouds and flows directly into your kitchen sink for less than half a penny per gallon. You're not buying convenience, and you're certainly not buying superior health. You are actively participating in the most brilliantly executed, psychologically manipulative marketing heist in the history of modern capitalism. Welcome to the invisible empire of the bottled water industry, a $300 billion global monopoly built entirely on manufactured fear, clever packaging, and the relentless privatization of a basic human right. To truly understand how this massive illusion was constructed, we have to look back at the corporate panic that hit the beverage industry a few decades ago. For a very long time, giant megacorporations like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo were making absolute fortunes selling heavily carbonated, sugary sodas. But as medical science advanced and public health awareness began to rise, consumers started to realize that drinking massive amounts of liquid sugar was directly linked to obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Soda sales slowly began to flatten, and the corporate executives sitting in their high-rise boardrooms panicked. They desperately needed to invent a new, highly profitable liquid revenue stream to keep their stock prices climbing. They looked at water, but they faced a massive, seemingly insurmountable hurdle. At the time, the idea of paying real money for plain, unflavored water in a plastic bottle was considered completely absurd by the general public. People happily drank from public water fountains, they drank from garden hoses on hot days, and they drank straight from the tap in their kitchens. The local governments in almost every developed nation had already spent billions of taxpayer dollars building massive reservoirs, sophisticated purification plants, and an endless underground network of pipes specifically designed to deliver clean, safe, drinkable water to every home. To convince the public to start paying for a resource that was already virtually free, the big beverage companies realized they could not just rely on standard advertising. They had to fundamentally rewire human psychology. So, they launched one of the most aggressive, heavily funded, and beautifully deceptive marketing campaigns in corporate history. The strategy was not to prove that their bottled water was better. The strategy was to convince you that your free tap water was dangerous. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on television commercials, magazine spreads, and targeted advertisements that subtly suggested municipal water was dirty, contaminated, tasting like chemicals, and generally unsafe for your family to consume. They carefully coined powerful marketing buzzwords like pure, pristine, and untouched by human hand to describe their factory-bottled products. This deliberately created a psychological contrast, implanting the subconscious idea that tap water was impure, heavily handled, and low quality. They even infiltrated the restaurant industry. If you sit down in a nice restaurant today, the waiter will almost immediately ask you, "Would you like still or sparkling water?" This seemingly innocent question is a brilliant psychological trap, forcing you into a corner where asking for a regular glass of tap water suddenly feels cheap, unsophisticated, or socially embarrassing. Slowly but surely, the corporations successfully stigmatized the public water supply. They brainwashed millions of consumers into genuinely believing that the only way to truly hydrate safely and responsibly was to buy their branded, factory-sealed products. But here is the massive, mind-bending reality at the very center of this entire economic engine. When you look at those beautiful plastic bottles lined up in the refrigerated aisle, decorated with majestic snow-capped mountains, crystal-clear blue glaciers, and bubbling natural springs, You naturally assume you are drinking exotic water source from a hidden, pristine oasis. But if you pick up a bottle of Dasani, which is owned by the Coca-Cola Company, or a bottle of Aquafina, which is owned by PepsiCo, and you take a very close look at the incredibly tiny, legally required print on the back of the label, you will see a simple phrase that completely shatters the entire illusion. It says, "Sourced from public water supply." Let that sink in for a moment. The exact same multi-billion-dollar corporations that spent decades silently convincing you that tap water was inferior are literally just taking tap water, putting it inside a piece of plastic, and selling it right back to you at a massive premium. They're not sending brave explorers up into the remote Swiss Alps. They are not discovering magical, untouched underground aquifers in the wilderness. They simply set up massive, highly automated industrial bottling plants right next to the municipal city water lines in heavily populated industrial areas like Detroit, Michigan, or Dallas, Texas. They open the local tap, just like you do in your own kitchen. They run that incredibly cheap, taxpayer-subsidized public water through a standard industrial filtration process like reverse osmosis. They sprinkle in a microscopic, mathematically precise pinch of salt and artificial minerals just so they can legally patent their specific taste profile, and then they tightly seal it inside a plastic container. The actual liquid water inside a standard $2 bottle of Dasani or Aquafina costs the corporation less than 1,000th of a single cent to procure. The liquid itself is effectively free. So what exactly are you paying for when you hand over your cash at the register? You are not buying hydration. You are buying the plastic bottle. You are buying the colorful label and the plastic cap. You are paying for the massive, deceptive marketing budget that tricked you into buying it in the first place. And most importantly, you are paying for the heavy diesel fuel required to load that heavy, uselessly packaged liquid onto 18-wheeler trucks and ship it all across the country. The actual manufacturing cost of the petroleum-based plastic bottle and its packaging is estimated to be around 5 to 10 cents. The corporation then turns around and sells that packaged tap water to a regional distributor, who sells it to a local retailer, who finally sells it to you for $2 or $3. That represents a breathtaking profit markup of roughly 2,000%. It is a margin that makes the profits of luxury fashion brands, high-end electronics, and even prescription pharmaceutical companies look incredibly small in comparison. And the absolute brilliance of this machine is that it creates an endless, inescapable cycle of consumption. Unlike a television or a pair of sunglasses, you do not just buy a bottle of water once. You consume the liquid inside in less than 10 minutes. You throw the packaging away, and the very next time you feel thirsty, you are forced to go back and buy another one. It is the ultimate recurring revenue model, perfectly disguised as a basic human necessity. But the true, horrifying cost of this money machine goes far beyond the cash draining out of your wallet every day. By shifting the public's reliance away from heavily regulated, free municipal tap water and toward privatized, highly expensive bottled water, we have created an environmental catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. Every single minute, over 1 million plastic bottles are purchased around the world. The beverage corporations try to ease your consumer guilt by printing little green, recycling logos on their packaging, telling you that as long as you put it in the correct blue bin, everything is perfectly fine. But that is yet another carefully constructed corporate lie. The overwhelming majority of these single-use plastic bottles are never actually recycled because it is simply too expensive and not profitable enough to do so. Instead, they're shipped off to massive, overflowing landfills. They are incinerated in a toxic smoke that pollutes the air, or they end up washing into our rivers and oceans. Once in the environment, they slowly break down into invisible, microscopic microplastics that are now found in the soil we farm, the food we eat, and the very blood flowing through our veins. We are actively destroying the natural world just to package, ship, and sell a resource that is already naturally abundant and available in our homes. It is an economic engine built entirely on waste, psychological manipulation, and the ruthless privatization of the planet's most vital resource. So the very next time you feel thirsty and you instinctively reach for that cold plastic bottle with a beautiful picture of a pristine mountain on it, take a moment to look at it for what it truly is. You are not holding a premium health product. You are holding a triumph of corporate brainwashing. You are holding a piece of toxic garbage filled with the exact same liquid that flows freely into your bathroom sink, sold back to you at an astronomical premium by a machine that relies entirely on your manufactured fear. And speaking of invisible extraction machines that advertise one price and secretly charge you something completely different, in the next video, we are going to expose the airline industry's most ruthless psychological pricing trap. An industry that advertises flights for $49, then systematically charges you hidden fees at every single step: baggage, seat selection, change fees, cancellation penalties, until that $49 ticket mysteriously becomes a $300 nightmare. These corporations have perfected the art of deception, using deliberately confusing pricing structures and buried fine print to extract billions of dollars from trapped passengers who have no other choice but to fly. The true, hidden cost of commercial aviation will shock you. If you want to keep exposing these hidden money machines, hit that subscribe button right now.